faith and hope is the light that leads us from the impossible to the possible. Welcome to the I'm Possible radio show. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the I'm Possible radio show. Actually, the first episode of the new year. And of course, as you all know, this show seasons is now split into two. So there will be several episodes here up until March, and then the season will resume again at the end of August. So shout out to everyone who is tuning in for the first time for the new year. I hope that you all's new year has gotten off to an amazing start. But before I introduce my guest on today, let's get the formalities out of the way. So if this is your first time tuning into the I'm Possible radio show or JQLM radio, and you would like to share with your family, friends, and followers on all the different ways that they can tune in, be sure to tell them to download the JQLM radio app on their Apple or Android devices. You can also listen live 24/7, 365 via Amazon Alexa, TuneIn app, Stream a Simple radio app, and a host of other platforms, of which can be found on our website, where you can also listen live at egoentertainmentnet.com. Also, don't forget to follow, like, and share us on social media. You can connect with JQLM Radio at JQLM Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also connect with Ego Entertainment Network at EgoEntNet. That's EgoEntNet on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also on LinkedIn at Ego Entertainment Network. And if you would like to connect with myself, Lady J, I do accept friend requests and I follow back. So you can connect with me on Facebook at Lady J Brand, on Instagram at ladyj.co, on Twitter. I'm really not on Twitter like that, but I'm trying to get better. So you can catch me there at JAQ_1. That's JAQU_ and the number 1. And on LinkedIn under Lady J. Also, don't forget to follow the I'm Possible radio show also as well on Facebook and Instagram. You can connect with us on I'm Possible radio show at I'm Possible radio show on Facebook and at I'm Possible radio on Instagram. And if you would like to learn more about myself and everything that I do, who I am, and what's available to you, then you can visit my website at ladyj.co. That's ladyj.co. Now, with that being said, that mouthful, let's introduce our guest for today. Our guest for today is Grant Lottering, and he is a cyclist. He's an extreme endurance cyclist, actually, to be exact. But that's not really what we're going to be talking about today, because, the show is all about people sharing their stories of overcoming the impossible, and also the lessons and the tools and the wisdom that they've learned and gained from those experiences, to realize that they are actually still possible in spite of those things that they've gone through. So with that being said, let's welcome Grant to the show. Welcome, Grant. How are you?
Hi. I'm great, Lady J. Thanks for having me. It's great being the first guest for the year.
Yeah, no problem. So real quick, before we get into your story, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, a little bit about your background and what you like to do in your spare time?
Yeah, well, I'm coming to you from South Africa. I'm sitting here right down in the south of South Africa. It's around, it's near Cape Town. And I'm a full-time extreme endurance cyclist. I'm a corporate speaker and conference speaker. Also at Christian venues, I share my testimony. My book has been authored. That's coming out later this year in the United States, in fact. So there's a lot going on, and that's pretty much what I'm doing full-time at the moment. Since my life changed in 2013, I was working full-time at a consultants and actuarial division in a bank here in South Africa. I was a corporate boy most of my working life, but always been a cyclist since the age of 12. And now I'm blessed enough to be able to do it full time. So it's wonderful. Wonderful.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mm,
So, let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to the beginning actually. So, tell
yeah.
me, before the incident took place on July 21st, um tell me what you were doing and what led up to that point before you tell us exactly what happened and um how you died.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always a cyclist. That was the only sport I was good at. And that was since I was the age of 12, I discovered cycling. And, in South Africa, it wasn't a very big sport back then. I'm not going to say when because I don't want to give my age away. But yeah, and I progressed throughout school and college, and I ended up becoming a full-time cyclist, a professional cyclist in Europe and South Africa. And then I retired from competitive cycling, but always continued cycling. I always enjoyed it.
Mhm.
And in my latter years, in my early 40s, not too long ago, I started to race competitively again. And I actually qualified to compete in the World Championships, which at that year was going to be held in Italy in 2013.
Mhm.
And I went over to train there for a good couple of months to prepare for the event itself, the World Championships. And at that time, I went into a race, which really was just to prepare for the World Championships.
Mhm.
And that was where I had the accident. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us what actually happened. What transpired in the accident? Did you fall? What happened to you?
Yeah. What happened was, well, firstly, when I was in this town called Trento, right in at the foot of the Alps in Italy. And
Mhm.
the race was going to go over three big mountains. It was about 140 kilometers. So that makes it, what, about 90 miles, I think? Yeah, somewhere around there. But
Mhm.
it was raining all night. So I was pretty concerned that morning. The roads were wet, very dangerous.
Mhm.
We went over the first mountain. I was near the front of the group. I was in a very strong competitive position. And I was chasing about six guys in front of me, going over the first mountain and down the other side. And yeah, we were just flying down this mountain. It's roads I've never been on before. And I came around a corner, and I took the corner a bit too wide, and there was water on the side of the road from the rain.
Mhm.
And I just lost control. I went straight on. There was a rock embankment. I went straight into this rock at about 60 odd kilometers an hour, or 40 miles an hour, like that. And I struck the rock embankment with my right shoulder and my back, the full force of the impact. Um,
Mm.
well, it happened so quickly, Lady J. It's I literally only had time to think to myself, "Don't hit your head, don't hit your head." Um,
Mhm.
and I just struck it so hard and bounced back into the road. And I lay in a fetal position on the side of the road with my legs, my lower torso in the road, facing the oncoming
Mhm.
cyclists who still came racing around that corner.
Mhm.
And one of the guys crashed straight into me. And he
Mm.
actually fractured my femur, this guy.
Mm.
But that was only just one of multiple bones that I broke that day, unfortunately, in that accident.
Mhm. So, when I know that at the impact, I know that you were probably in excruciating pain. How did
Yeah.
because you all were racing, and so it's not like you
Mm,
were around a lot of people. How did they get
yeah.
to you? Um,
Mm.
once that happened, and were the other cyclists, like, did everyone stop? What happened after that?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. Quite a few little miracles happened that morning. I think the first one was that I did not even scratch my helmet. I did not hit my head, although I
Mhm.
fractured 22 bones. I had compound fractures in my sternum, my lower back. I fractured 12 ribs. My right shoulder was crushed.
Mhm.
My right femur, my hip, they were all broken. But I didn't even scratch my helmet. So I can remember pretty well how the whole thing transpired. The guy that crashed into me, he turned out to be a doctor. Can you believe it? I mean, what's the
Wow.
odds of that? Yeah. what are the odds of that? But yeah, he crashed. Obviously, I mean, he crashed over me. So, but he wasn't badly hurt, and then he stayed with me because he could see I was seriously injured. I remember lying there, just vomiting blood, screaming from the pain. I couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
It was just insane. One or two other guys then also stopped, but I can just remember the cyclists just racing past, all
Mm-hmm.
yelling to warn people behind them. I
Okay.
don't know how much time transpired there, but fortunately for me, I was quite in the front of the race. So the main race official vehicle that was following us was behind me.
Uh-huh.
And as it came around the corner, it stopped. There was a doctor in the vehicle, and he
Mm-hmm.
was the head of the intensive care unit down in Trento, which was at that stage about 40 kilometers or call it 25 miles away from the start. He stopped, and the minute he got there, then they obviously started to take control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So there was generally only a few cyclists who stopped, and then the medical team started arriving. A helicopter flew in, and they started to work on me. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was quite chaotic. Yeah,
Well, I can
it was
only
insane.
imagine. I mean, just trying to envision like
Mm,
the scenario and in the
yeah,
moment. Um,
yeah,
I'm pretty
oh, it
sure
was
the
horrible.
listeners, if you are listening like to him describing exactly what's happened and how he got to that point, I mean, it's kind of like something you would see in a movie. So
Yeah, it still plays in my mind. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah,
And just the
mm,
fact that you could remember that and you were lucid enough and weren't, I don't,
yeah,
I'm assuming that you didn't go into shock or anything like immediately. So, um,
yeah.
so I, my next question then would be, once you were rescued, if you will,
Mm,
from that area and you were
mm,
taken, I'm assuming on the chopper to a hospital, um,
yeah.
did you lose consciousness at any time between
Mm.
the accident and on your way to the hospital? And if not, when did you lose consciousness and when did you find out um that you were deemed, deceased?
Yeah, yeah. I still don't know whether it was a blessing or a curse that I can remember everything. Sometimes, yeah, but yeah, I remained conscious, and I quite often still talk about the experience of dying. It's a very difficult thing to do because people just cannot comprehend it. But
Mhm.
what actually happened was, both my lungs were punctured and my thorax also collapsed.
Mhm.
So it got to a point where I simply could not breathe any longer.
Mhm.
And no one actually knows. I still don't know whether that was the stage when the medical doctor arrived on the scene or shortly after. But I can recall that as I lay in that fetal position, I'm lying on my side, my head is on the ground, and I see these faces above me looking down at me, trying to help. I had
Mhm.
ruptured veins in my arteries in my neck and my right arm, and there was a lot of blood, and guys were
Mhm.
trying to stop the bleeding, holding hands onto my neck and everything. And
Mhm.
I could see them out of the corner of my eye. And I can still remember clearly, suddenly I couldn't hear a thing. I can still see them.
Right.
I still felt this incredible pain. My whole body was just, I just cannot describe it. But I couldn't hear them anymore.
Mhm.
And next thing, the pain was gone. I felt no pain, absolutely
Mhm.
nothing. And obviously, I couldn't breathe, so I could just hear and feel my heart pounding in my head. And then I started to lose focus. I couldn't see clearly anymore. And I can recall still to this day, I lay there and I was trying to cry out and trying to communicate, but I couldn't.
Mhm.
And I recall I think it was in my spirit, when you're in an accident like that, it's like your subconscious mind takes over because you start losing your faculties.
Uh-huh.
And I recall lying there and just saying, God, I'm dying. Help me, please. I'm dying. I'm busy dying.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was at that point where I probably lost consciousness at that point. I couldn't breathe anymore. So I basically just, yeah. And it was as though you put me into a soundproof dark room where I was still subconsciously, I was still aware, but I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't feel anything. Very, very strange. I saw no lights in a tunnel, I can tell you that. I didn't see anything like that. Interestingly for me, and I think maybe it's because of my faith, I don't know, but it became an incredibly peaceful place where I was just almost like taken out of that chaotic situation. Quite surreal. And the doctor that treated me on the road came to see me in ICU 10 days or so later in hospital. And he explained to me they had to defibrillate me twice. My heart stopped beating twice. And twice they had to fight to get my heart going. So they had to stabilize me there on the road. They did some surgery there and everything to try and open up my lungs. And then they had to transport me down the mountain to where the helicopter was able to land. And there they uploaded me and flew me down to ICU.
Okay.
I came around about, I don't know, 34 hours later in ICU. Yeah.
Awesome. So, some of the things that you described, I personally can identify with. Suffering a ruptured brain aneurysm and bleeding out into my brain.
Sure.
And losing my faculties and not being able to be, conscious. And you're literally dying. So, I can definitely identify with you. And for some reason though, I don't know if if it was the same for you, but you know how people, when you go through life, nobody really likes to talk about death. But then when you're at death's door and you're dying, like a peace comes over you and you just accept it. Like, okay, in your head, you're like, okay, this is happening. But I know that you, I know that you were saying that in your head, you were like, okay, God, I'm dying, help me. And that is something that comes to your mind, especially if you have children or family, things that, so you start thinking about, all of those things. Now, when you came to, when you came to and they told you that they had to resuscitate you twice with the defibrillator, did you remember anything that transpired when you were flatline? I know that you said it wasn't like you didn't see lights or anything like that, but did you experience anything in those moments or minutes?
I did not. That's the most incredible thing. I did not. It was just the most incredible peace that I've ever experienced. It surpasses human understanding. That's all I can recall. I just had this absolute total peace,
right?
That I've never experienced before. Never.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so when you well, hold on. Before we get to how you got to where you are now, let's just go ahead and this is it's so amazing when you find yourself in a situation like this and just to see where you are now, like it's really nothing but the grace of God. So before we get into how Grant, got through rehab and all this other kind of stuff and when you all learn what he's doing right now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break so that we can get those bills paid real quick, and then we'll be right back with Grant Lottering and continuing the Grant Lottering story about death's door. And you don't want to miss it, so stick and stay. We will be right back. This is your girl, Lady J, and you are tuned into the I'm Possible Radio Show right here on JQLM Radio, a division of Ego Entertainment Network. Would you like to advertise your brand, product, service, or event to hundreds of potential clients and guests with direct links to inquire and shop immediately? Well, advertise with Ego Magazine, the hottest bi-monthly digital interactive magazine around. Your ad will include clickable buttons that lead directly to your service or product for the interactive experience. Half page ads are only $15 and full page ads are only $25. Did we mention that your ad runs for 60 days? Advertise with us. Ego Magazine, a division of Ego Entertainment Network. Visit www.egoentertainmentnet.com. That's www.egoentertainmentnet.com and complete the form while you're there. We look forward to promoting you. Track Try Me by Arulo on Mixkit.com.
Hey there. If you can hear my voice, this is Pamela, host of Hospital the Tea, here to remind you that Ego Entertainment Network has a lot for your business. Listen, honey, you need to get with it. Ego Entertainment offers various services, media coverage, red carpet services, promo interviews on air. They offer meet and greet services, honey, not to mention other event services. You want to get in gear. Ego Entertainment is empowered greatness optimized. We're now booking and spots are going fast. Ego serves the United States and all event types, honey. So if you are opening a business, having a store opening, a restaurant opening, and you want some coverage, Ego Entertainment is the way to go. Call or text 317-886-0296 or go to egoentertainmentnet.com.
All right. And so we are back. You are tuned into the Impossible Radio Show with your girl, Lady J, right here on JQLM Radio, a division of Ego Entertainment Network. And we have been speaking with our guest this morning, Grant Lottering. And today's topic, I entitled it Death's Door. And for those of you who are just tuning in, he was sharing how he had a major accident as a cyclist that caused him to break a lot of bones in his body, punctured his lungs and things of that sort. He was airlifted to the hospital. He actually had to be defibrillated a couple times, and he was sharing how that transitional space, he just felt at peace. So now that I have you all up to speed, let's talk about Grant. Tell me, when you were able to fully understand the magnitude of what you had gone through, tell me how that had affected you mentally and emotionally. Being a cyclist and loving cycling, did you ever get to the point where you got depressed and felt like you wouldn't be able to do that again? Tell me what kind of impact it had on you.
Yeah, it had a huge impact on me. It's if I had to tell people what's the biggest passion in my life, then it would be cycling, riding a bike. Mm-hmm. And what happened in hospital when I came around in ICU, it was pretty traumatic for me because I had obviously I had a ventilator. I couldn't breathe or anything on my own, couldn't make a sound. Mm-hmm. So it was very traumatic. And my first thought was, gee, I'm alive. I'm here. Where am I? In which hospital am I? What happened to me? What are my injuries? Mm-hmm. I couldn't move, and I was terrified because I thought I was paralyzed. I was just heavily sedated. I had epidural. Can you believe it? Mm-hmm. Because of the for various reasons. But my brother had arrived there from Holland. He drove down by car. He lives in the Netherlands, and he saw I'd come around, and he started talking to me, and I wanted to know what happened. So I was able to write on a little piece of paper. I just wrote there, what are my injuries? Am I paralyzed? And he started talking to me, and he explained to me all my injuries. And I wanted to know, will I ride a bike again? That was my first question. Mm-hmm. And, I was told quite clearly during my time in the ICU, and even the doctor who came to speak to me, who saved my life, we're still friends to this day. He said to me, you would probably never ride a bike again because my shoulder was completely crushed. Mm-hmm. I've had 11 surgeries in this right shoulder of mine to date. Mm. And it was a hot blow for me. I was, Initially I had a whole phase. I think it's most of us go through that, Lady J, when we face a traumatic event. It's the acceptance, it's the anger phase, all those things. And
Yeah.
for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was a case of I was so bitterly disappointed because I was there to train for the World Championships, and
Mm-hmm.
this happened to me. So it's like I couldn't believe it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why did this happen? What have I done to deserve this? And now they're telling me I'll never ride a bike again. So it was very hard for me. But truth be told, that period in ICU, it was just a matter of trying to get through. The pain was just off the charts. I mean, I was living on morphine, and
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine if your back, your shoulder blade, your shoulder, your femur, your hip, your ribs, even my sternum was fractured. You cannot move. You cannot even sniff. It's
Right.
too painful. So I was just trying to get through that. And once after 9 days, they moved me to high care. They took me off morphine, and I could actually start to feel a bit more normal in a sense, especially mentally.
Uh-huh.
And I was actually in a very, very bad space mentally. I was very down, very, very down. I was very concerned. We didn't know how long I was going to be in hospital. How would I get back to South Africa and all that stuff? So
Mm-hmm.
when the doctor came to speak to me, he sat with me and we had a very good heart-to-heart conversation. He said to me in broken English, he's Italian, of course. He said to me, Grant, you're the first patient I can tell this, that you survived death. There's a reason you're alive. You
Wow.
must do something with this. Something happened to you, and you can talk about it. And he left me that night. And it was as if the lights came on for me, because in that situation, all I was thinking about was, it's like being in a storm. You can't see clearly. It's overwhelming.
Right.
And you're just totally swamped with the situation. You cannot see the wood for the trees. But after he left, I got some clarity, and I realized, but Grant, yes, this happened to you, but you know what? You're alive. You're not paralyzed.
Right.
You can do something with your life. And I almost had a vision of a clean slate, a blank book, a blank page, if you call it.
Uh-huh.
And I figured, I've been given a second chance at life here. God, you gave me a second chance at life. I
Right.
determined to do something with it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I decided I'm going to do is I want to prove the doctors wrong. I decided in hospital already, I want to come back the next year and finish the race.
Mm-hmm.
No idea how that was going to happen. I mean, I couldn't even set up right. So yeah, that's pretty much how I want to answer your question. It was, I went through all those different emotions, but what changed for me, what became a pivotal thing for me from turning that impossible to possible for me was I changed my mindset. I changed the way I looked at the situation. I went from being the victim, thinking all the time about what happened to me, why did it happen to me, what am I going to do? I started
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get better. I'm going to get back on my bike. I'm going to come back and I'm going to finish this race. So I gave myself something to work towards. And I think mentally, if you make that decision, no matter what situation you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and you change your attitude towards the adversity you're facing, it makes a massive difference in not only what you're thinking, but also how you're feeling.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
it helped me tremendously. Yeah, it helped me tremendously.
Right. So, we all have that aha moment when we find ourselves in a situation that seems extremely hopeless and impossible.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you have something as life changing and life altering as surviving
Mm,
death, um,
yeah,
it really puts things into perspective for us. And the things that we took for granted, we realize how a lot of times the small things are the things that matter the most. And so, um,
yeah.
in
So true. So true.
in um in coming to the realization that, hey, I'm still here, even if I
Mm-hmm.
never get to cycle again, I'm here for a reason. And so let me
Yeah.
figure out, what that reason is and how I can take this
Mm,
experience and start to use it to help other people is
yeah.
it's absolutely amazing. And so uh before we reveal like what it is that you've been able to accomplish since then, I want to kind of walk everybody through what your process was, because you said that you had made up in your mind that you were going to prove the doctors wrong. So tell me, what was that process like for you?
Yeah.
And being somebody who, I know that you had to go through probably a lot of rehab and things of that sort. If for those of
Oh
you
yeah.
who have
Yeah.
never had to learn how to walk again, how to,
Mm.
and I know for me, I couldn't do anything for myself. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't wash myself. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even talk. So, it takes an
Yeah.
extreme amount of of mental willpower to stay dedicated
Yes.
to rehab.
Oh
Oh my
yeah.
God. Especially if you're in it for a very long time. And I did 18 months.
Yes.
So I can only
Wow.
imagine for you, like,
Yeah.
when you have a goal in mind, if you are an extremely determined individual, it takes an
Mm.
enormous amount of willpower to be able to dedicate yourself to that and stick with it, even though
Yes.
progress may seem slow. So can you walk everybody through what it was
Yeah.
that you did to make sure that you made good on the promise to yourself that you would prove the doctors wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I love the way you put it. I love that question. It's you're really talking about grit, grit and mental
Yeah, yeah.
strength.
Yeah.
That's really what we're talking about. And for me, quite simply, it's if you don't give yourself a purpose or a bigger goal to accomplish than the situation you're in, it's very difficult to do that and to persevere. It's very, very difficult and very easy to give up. So for me, when I came back home, I was in high care. And after 21 days, they flew me home with medical assistance back to South Africa. Ambulance drove me to my house. They
Mhm.
wheeled me in, put me on my bed. My family and friends and everybody. I was single at that stage. I was not in a relationship. So my mother and my friends, everybody was there. And
Mhm.
when they all left for the first time since the accident, I was actually alone. And then the reality hit me really hard as to the extent of my situation.
Mhm.
It's one thing to say, "Hey, I'm going to come back within a year. I'm going to finish the race." That's great, but
Right.
now now it's also like where now it's where it's hitting the tar here. You got to
Mhm.
get things done,
Right.
and if so, I had this goal, sure, but I think what I did is I immediately gave myself a purpose. My purpose was going to become that I wanted to not just go back and finish the race. I wanted to do it, and I wanted to raise money for underprivileged children. There are so many in South Africa, so I attached a purpose to it. Because Lady J, when I lay in hospital one night, I can still remember. I was lying there, and it was dark, it was quiet, there was no one around, and I thought to myself, Ron, if you died on that road, on that mountainside, how would you have been remembered? How relevant was your life?
Right.
Oh,
Wow.
it was
Mhm.
a it was a massive wake up call for me, because up to that point, I was pretty much living my life for me. I was using
Right.
my sport for me. I was working for me. Everything was about me.
Mhm.
And then, you spoke earlier about, the small things in life and what really matters. And I remember I lay in hospital, not once that I think about my work or my finances or my
Mhm.
car or my house or none of those things. I thought about my health.
Right.
I thought about my faith. I thought about my family, and I thought about my friends.
Mhm.
Those are the things that really matter. And so I came back home, and I had done a lot of soul searching already. And I think it's so important for people to do that. And so I had a goal, and yeah, I started working towards it. But what I also did is I started to use the power of visualization in terms
Mhm.
of not focusing on what I see every day. Because when I got back home, I weighed, oh, you know what? I weighed half of what I did when I went over to Europe. I
Mhm.
was incredibly thin, and I would see myself in the mirror. And if I just focused on what I saw and the pain I felt, it would have been
Mhm.
incredibly difficult for me to persevere.
Right.
But I made sure that I gave myself time every day to not focus and think about what happened or where I am, but to
Mhm.
see myself achieving what I'm wanting to achieve. I could sit and visualize myself riding my bike, seeing myself
Mhm.
finishing the race. And for me, that almost became my reality. Your mind is a very, very powerful thing. Your body responds to your mind.
Right.
And I'm sure you have to do that too. You have to draw on your mental strength when your body is not capable. So
Right.
I made a point of doing that every single day, and that's what got me through. That's what helped me. And I was so determined. I was just downright stubborn. I mean, I remember I went to see a surgeon. He said to me, no, you will not ride again. And I went to another surgeon. The second surgeon told me the same thing. I got to a third surgeon, and he bought into my vision of wanting to ride again. He said, I'll get you back on your bike. It might not be next year, but I will get you back on your bike. And I figured, okay, let's just start working now. I need surgery. He did 5 surgeries on me in 4 months. I had rehabilitation. Yeah, I did rehabilitation, extensive rehabilitation, just to try and walk again, touch my toes again, that type of thing. But I found people to work with, and we had a medical team. I had a nutritionist, I had a biokineticist, I had a physio, I had a pulmonologist because my lungs were so damaged. I had a whole group of people I was working with. We all had one goal, to get me back on my bike. So that's the important thing. But for me, more than that was I had a purpose. I wanted to make my life relevant. I wanted to make a difference in children's lives. And that to me was a catalyst.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So since the incident and the surgeries and the rehab, well, first, how long? So he did 5 surgeries on you in 4 months. Tell me, how long did it take for you to go through those surgeries, go through rehab and all of that, and actually be able to return to a level of normalcy and able to actually get back on a bike?
Yeah. So my accident was 21 July 2013. I got back to South Africa late August 2013. September, October, November, as well as in Italy, we had the 5 surgeries. My goal was always to start riding my bicycle, whether it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't matter, on 1 February 2014. The race that I wanted to go back and finish was the 5th of July 2014. That's 11 months after my accident. So I was at home recovering until the end of 2014. I hadn't even returned back to work then. Towards Christmas of 2013, it was the first time I was able to actually walk around my house without having to sit down and recover somewhere. I had a crutch, of course, but that's how long it took. I could start riding my bicycle on the 1st of February 2014 for about 10 minutes. That was it. So from there, the recovery started. I started gaining strength and muscle mass, and that very quickly from there on. So those first 6-7 months was a real hard part for me. But even when I stood on the start line in Italy in 2014, apart from being obviously terrified and thinking, what the hell was I thinking? I still couldn't pick up a big bag with my right shoulder, with my right arm. I still couldn't. It was still too weak. So I took a massive gamble. I just knew it would be destiny. I had to do it, even though I hadn't fully recovered yet.
Right. Okay. That's awesome. That is amazing. So now fast forward to here, recently, and now you started a tour, the Impossible Tour. And can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm so proud of it, and I really believe it's something that was divinely inspired. So when I went back to finish the race, I crashed in. I remember after the finish, I went to my brother and we had a beer in a pub up on the top of the mountain. It was wonderful. It was my first beer since my accident. And I said to him, brother, I just completed something that everybody said was impossible.
Wow.
And we had a chat about it. And I said to him, you know what, that has just become my I'm possible. Audrey Hepburn said, impossible spells I'm possible. And I said to him, I want to do this every year. If I can do this with one leg and one arm, what can I do when I'm fully recovered? So the idea was born right there. So 2015, I went back to France and I rode a 24-hour ride through the Alps on my own, nonstop through the day, through the night. raised a lot of money for kids, and every year it just grew from there. And yeah, it's just remarkable. If I look back, before my accident, if you told me I would ride 600, 700 miles nonstop without sleeping through the Alps day and night in the dark, up and down these mountains in 48 hours, 60 hours, I would have told you are mad. That would never happen. But that's exactly what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, it's always just been such a humbling experience. And then with corporate sponsors getting involved with me, and even now where I'm able to now share my story in the United States, and I'll be going over there soon. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. It's just grown every year. And it's just from this desire that I have to inspire people, to challenge people, to not put other people's limits on you in terms of what they think you can and can't do. That's what drives me. And I inspire people, and I use these tours to raise money for charity for underprivileged children.
Right. Okay. That is, I love the Impossible, the Impossible tour, as far as the cycling and raising funds for children. That's just it's amazing. Now, I don't know about the cycling for that long for 48 hours, but you have to be in enormous shape for that. I will say that it's really unbelievable when you think about where you were and then where you are now. It really truly is unbelievable. And it's absolutely a living, breathing example of a true miracle, and it just is. So we're gonna go ahead and take our last break, and then when we come back, I am going to let Grant share the last part of his story and talk about what he'll be doing here in the US and his book and all of this good stuff, and how you all can support and follow and all of that. So stick and stay. We'll be right back. You are tuned in to the Impossible Radio Show with your girl, Lady J, right here on JQLM Radio, a division of Ego Entertainment Network. Join the JQLM Radio family today. Syndicate your show or come host and produce your own show on air, live, or pre-recorded from anywhere in the world. That's not all. JQLM Radio also distributes your episodes to all major podcast platforms like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and more. Come join this full service and support platform. Get help with sponsorships, built from our current listeners from all over the world in 45 countries and growing. Gain access to promotional materials and let JQLM Radio promote you too. And be a part of our live media coverage team that covers events and hosts red carpet activities with celebrities and more. For more information or to join now, visit www.egoentertainmentnet.com or email us at jqlmradio@gmail.com. JQLM Radio, real voices, raw entertainment, and relevant topics. Track, Funk by Arulo. If you're tired of hearing the same music and content every 5, 10, or 15 minutes on air, then check out JQLM Radio for the realest, rawest, and most relevant variety of music, talk shows, and more. Start your days with a little bit of gospel and gospel rap from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All of my life, I've never known you to fail. You deliver me. 'Cause all I seem to do is coming and breaking it down with that wicked style, man. We really living it out. Don't miss it.
Then get into some hot R&B.
Say baby, what you doing? Excited.
Some hip hop.
Falling in deep with the quicksand. Flag on the fan, oh quick run. I was packing on the pound, got my.
A little bit of pop.
Watermelon sugar, strawberry.
some neo soul for the rest of the day. JQLM Radio, real, raw, and relevant.
Holds my hand.
All right. And we are back. You are tuned into the Impossible Radio Show with your girl, Lady J, right here on JQLM Radio, a division of Ego Entertainment Network. And I have been speaking with my guest, Grant Lottering, who has been sharing his amazing story of surviving death and getting back to cycling and even doing more than he was doing before. So, Grant, can you share a little bit about what it is that you are doing now, or and what you're bringing to the US, your new book, and all of that good stuff?
Yeah, super excited. It was actually during the pandemic in 2020 that I was contacted by guys in the States. We saw my story on social media and that, and fast forwarding a year or two up to now, I have a wonderful sponsor, the Unite Health Share Ministry, UHSM. They're bringing me over in April, and we are planning my first Impossible tour through California in the first week of June. And it's going to be a big one. I'm going to be riding right up from north of Lake Tahoe all the way down to Orange County. And it'll probably take me all of about 70 odd hours, I think, continuous riding. So that's going to be a big one. I'm doing it for the Laureus Sport for Good Foundation USA, of whom for whom I am an ambassador actually here in South Africa. They use sport programs to help kids, keep them off the streets, all that, teach them life skills. It's really, really wonderful what they do. And I'm going to be raising money for them. So with the support of UHSM, we've also been able to author my book, which we're going to launch, called Before I Die Again. We're going to bring out the book sometime this year in the States. We're going to release it. I'm super excited about that. I'm going to be sharing my testimony at a few conferences over in the States. There's some speaking engagements lined up already. But really working with UHSM has been an absolute gift, simply because of their incredible work they do with communities, especially in California. So it ties in quite a lot with what I do as well, raising money for children, underprivileged children in particular. So I'm super excited for that. Yeah, we're going to do a US Impossible tour, the first one.
Wow.
And it's just something sometimes I still pinch myself thinking, how did this door to the States just open like that? It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, that's wow, that's awesome. And California, I mean, what better state to do it in too, I mean, that's gonna be epic. So
pretty much.
Your book, tell us when do you expect for that to come out, and where will people will it be available actually first for pre-order? If so, how can they do that?
Yeah, it's a little bit premature for me to be able to give you that kind of information right now, because we're still finalizing one or two details around the book deal and that itself. The plan is to release the book after my tour. My tour will be the first week of June. Okay. The plan is to release it afterwards while I am in the United States. So we are aiming for June. I think we will definitely have pre-order books available, probably through UHSM, but also through my website, grantlottering.com. We'll see how we do that. But it's very exciting, and we want to release it in the States first, obviously because of my sponsor there, and
right.
They made the book possible for me. We have an author in London who wrote the book for me, so they played a big part in that. So the best thing would be through my website. We obviously, through UHSM, we're going to release a lot of information in the media as well. Media releases and so on.
Okay, awesome. So can you share with everyone, how can they support you, follow you, connect with you, all of that?
Yeah, it'll be wonderful. So I do have my website, grantlottering.com.
Okay.
The best though, just go straight to Instagram. Do follow me, please, guys. Yes, I'm here in South Africa. I'm going to be over in the States pretty soon. We're also working on a documentary. There's a lot of stuff going on, but really my content is uplifting. It's inspirational. It's motivational. I do speak at many corporate events, so I always try and share things that will encourage and inspire people. And of course, also with my cycling and all that, my Instagram handle is Lottering, straightforward, Lottering. It'll be great to get a follow through that. Otherwise, just go to my website. All my social media handles are on there. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Awesome.
That'll be great.
Awesome.
I'll appreciate that. In terms of fundraising, we will have a strategy which we'll put in the media. We will share it through my social media and through UHSN as well. So it's really great. Yeah.
Man, Grant, has definitely been a pleasure having you on, sharing your story.
I've loved it. Thank you.
It's definitely one
honor.
for it's definitely one for the books. I mean, it's an amazing story of, overcoming the absolute impossible. But as all of my listeners, as you all know, I'm always nothing is impossible with God. When he's in it,
Amen.
there is no limit. So
That is so true.
So if you have any final thoughts that you would like to share it with the audience, or what is the main takeaway that you would like for everyone to take away from your story, what would that be?
Oh, really, I would say two things, maybe three. The first one is don't let other people put their limits on you in terms of what you can and can't do. Don't. And also we all face adversity. And I know even in the States, these past year or two has been incredibly tough for everyone. I think it's the attitude that we have towards adversity that makes the difference.
Right.
Make sure your attitude is right. Use it. Don't let it use you. When life takes a turn for the worse, do something with it. Don't let it do something with you. I can, you can, and with God in you, nothing's impossible.
Yes, absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. So everyone, we have come down to the end of our show. This has been an amazing show, listening to Grant share his story. I hope that you all were able to take something away from this, and the words of wisdom that he's left with you all. Again, I just want to thank you for coming on here, and I, hope and, pray that you can continue to be successful in all that you are doing, utilizing, your gifts, your talents, and your life experience to, encourage and uplift others. Absolutely wonderful. So everyone, no problem. So as I always say before I close out the show, after all of the hell you went through, the word through is an indication that you defeated the impossible too. New adversities will come, but overcoming them has already made you unstoppable. The favor over your life incomparable, which gives you the right to think and believe I'm possible. This is your girl, Lady J. You've been tuned in to the I'm Possible Radio Show right here on JQLM Radio, a division of Ego Entertainment Network. Love y'all. Deuces.